Hi, I'm Cindi McGee, and you're watching Polymer Clay TV. Today's project is inspired by this absolutely beautiful gelatin printed poinsettia collage image created by artist Neela Smith Gabler. This is the second time I've been inspired by Neela's gorgeous art. I'm going to silkscreen a sheet of gold Primo Sculpey, which I rolled to a setting number 2 on the clay machine, with the Crackle and Wood Grain silkscreen from CreateAlong. Place it colored side down against your clay. I like to give it a little roll just to make sure it's going to stay in place. And I'm going to silkscreen with some DecoArt Americana Multi-Surface Satin Gold. This is a metallic gold. Lift it up and go ahead and immediately silkscreen it on the next side, and then wash your silkscreen right away so that it is ready to use next time, and let the paint dry on the clay sheet. And here it is once it's dry. You can see it's a very subtle background effect. I just wanted a little bit of detail back there and almost the illusion of a little bit of texture. To make the red poinsettia leaves, I'm actually using scrap clay in assorted shades of red and a touch of gold. This is all Sculpey Primo and Primo accents. Chop it into fine pieces. Then gather the pieces together and make sure that that gold is sort of evenly distributed throughout, and begin to compress it a bit with your hands and with the clay roller, just enough so that you can lift it off that tile and run it through the clay machine. This is after I've rolled it through the pasta machine, and I folded it in half and rolled it again, just enough to begin to blend it, and rolled it on a setting 2. Then we're going to repeat the process with some scraps of green clay in assorted shades, and again, just a touch of gold, metallic gold. Chop it fine, compress it slightly, and then run it through the clay machine the same way. Now it's time to begin building the poinsettia flowers. I'm using a craft knife, and I'm going to cut petals from the red in assorted shapes, some a little larger, some a little smaller. And after I cut each one, it's just a random petal shape. There is no template or anything. But after I cut each one, I'm using my finger to just smooth the edges a little bit. Keep cutting petals until you've used all of your red sheet of clay, and then cut some petals from the green sheet. You won't need more than 5 or 6 of these. All right, all of my petals are cut out, and it's time to start arranging them on that silk-screened background clay. You want to begin with your slightly larger petals and just place them about 5 on the bottom. Add in a few of the green petals. These will be the leaves for the poinsettia. You want those between the bottom petals. You can put them underneath, lift them up and place them underneath, however you want to arrange them for each of the flowers. Once you've got your leaves and your first base layer of petals, begin adding more petals on the next layer, place those between the bottom petals so that you build your flower. Continue using the slightly smaller petals with each layer that you go up. Building your flowers until you run out of petals and just place them here and there on that background sheet. Now that the flowers are all in place, it's time to add that outlining, that black detailing, and the veining on the petals and leaves. And I'm using some black acrylic paint for that and a really fine paintbrush to do that. You just want to add a little bit of paint to the tip of that paintbrush and outline each of those petals and leaves first. Once you have them outlined, you can go back and add a little bit of leaf veining detail. Repeat until you have finished all of the flowers on the background sheet, and then let that acrylic paint dry. Okay, it's pretty this way, but now it's time to kind of smush it and give it the effect of that original gel print. And to do that, you can see I cut out a little section to test on that's this piece over here. But you want to place some parchment paper over it and then use your roller and very gently begin rolling it. Roll one flower at a time, change directions of your roller, and just keep pressing and rolling until that flower gets smooshed and inset into that background clay. Keep going until you've done all of the flowers. And then lift off that parchment paper, and there are your inset flowers that have that sort of gel printed, hand painted type effect, yet still have a little dimension from the different layers. We're going to add the centers next. Take a little of that leftover green that you rolled out and add some more gold, chop it up fine, and then just roll it together and roll it out. You want it 1/8 of an inch thick or so. We're going to be using our Sculpey Etch and Pearl tool, so thick enough so that that will work well. Use your medium Etch and Pearl tool to create small pearls and place them in the center of each of the flowers, however many you like. Then use that same black acrylic paint and the fine paintbrush just to add a little bit of detail around each of the pearls. It's really just an accent, and let that paint dry. Place the parchment paper back on top and gently roll, again, rolling in different directions and just applying light, even pressure to begin to compress those center pearls. You don't want them completely flat. I like just a little bit of dimension, so I'm just going to flatten mine a bit, but leave them slightly raised. Now your veneer or slab is ready to make jewelry or polymer trading coins or use however you'd like. I'm going to use my largest tribal shell cutter from CreateAlong to cut one of my pendants, and the round cutter from CreateAlong to cut another, and then a slightly larger round cutter to cut a third pendant from my finished veneer. I'm going to make a black Primo backing for my jewelry pieces. I have used the Tribal Waves texture sheet. I rolled my clay to a level 2 on my atlas, and I'm using the CreateAlong Tribal Waves texture sheet. Place it on the sheet of clay, and I'm just going to roll it with even pressure to apply the design. And then I'm going to use the same cutters to cut my background pieces for each of my 3 pendants. I place the textured black pieces onto the back of each of the pendants. I did roll a large chunky bead with a scrap of the veneer too. It was actually the center is black clay, and then I wrapped it in a scrap piece of the veneer and then baked it all according to the manufacturer's instructions. After they were baked and cooled, I rolled some more Primo Black to a 2 on the clay machine, and I'm using the same texture sheet to texture it. Then I'm going to cut 2 circles to make my bales on the back of the 2 round pendants. I'm using a little bacon bond to mount them in place, and then I'm going to bake them again according to the manufacturer instructions to make sure that they're set and fully cured. I drilled a hole in the large round bead, big enough for 2 strands of my gold cording to go through, and I'm going to drill 2 small holes in the tribal shell-shaped pendant for jump rings. Okay, I've added my jump rings, and now I'm going to use some DecoArt Metallic Luster. This is Gold Rush, and I'm just using my finger to apply a little bit to the outer edges and to the back of each of the pendants to highlight the texture that we created with the texture sheet. And here are the finished pendants after I've added my gold satin cording. For more inspiration, join our Polymer Clay Tribe Facebook page. Over 18,000 members sharing projects every day. For lots more creative polymer clay ideas, visit the Polymer Clay TV blog.